I made myself open to something when I began to become interested in this work. Things began to get poured into me because I began to be more observant about other people. I thought of Jean Jones as sort of like the ultimate immigrant who was the only one who was able to make the journey from Mars to Earth that he had lived for a long time. It's funny because I don't do Jean unless I'm in Jean mode because that's not me. I have my voice and I get to be full voiced and I don't care. But Jean had to be cautious. In some ways, it's like asking me which is my favorite child. But at the risk of making the other kids a little jealous, I would say Isaiah is.
In 1979, Escape from Alcatraz would hit the big screen, introducing audience to, unbeknownst to them, a rising industry superstar. While the MCU welcomes him with open arms as Isaiah Bradley, DC fans and beyond have come to love him for decades as the iconic Martian Manhunter in the DCAU and various DC projects. But his contributions go deeper than just to our favorite nerdy franchises. It goes to the very heart of the entertainment industry, including being the very first Black superhero on TV. He's made history and has charmed audiences as you can catch him as Ananasi in Static Shock, Dr. Miles Hawken in Mantis, Marcus Dixon in Alias, C. Augustin Dupin in The Fall of the House of Usher, and most recently in Captain America: Brave New World. From the stage to the big screen with over 120 acting credits, he guarantees quality and a brilliant passion to any project he lends his talents to. Welcome to Jantmor Interviews. I'm your host Josh, aka Jantmor, and please help me welcome journalist turned award-winning acting extraordinaire, Carl Lumbly.
Pretty extraordinary.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. It's such an honor to finally have you here, good sir. I'm such a huge fan of your work. I mean, like I said in the intro, Martian Manhunter is such an important and personal role to me. So to be able to speak to you here, not just because of this, but so much stuff that I've researched you've done to prepare for this interview. I mean, man, you've just accomplished so much over your lifetime and have lived so many lives. I'm so honored to discuss and celebrate so much of your career today.
Well,
so again,
thank you so much. I'm very pleased to have an opportunity to talk to the people who not only made it possible, but the people who I represent, which is audiences. I think the good fortune that I've had over the years has been to be involved in projects that I think speak to all sorts of different groups of people and to us in the generality. And that's what I've been privileged to do, and I hope to continue.
Absolutely. There's so much we're going to get into today and so much to talk about. But first, I want to get into the origin story of the amazing actor we all know and love today. You, Mr. Carl Lumbly, want to get into your origin story a little bit here. We love a good origin story with our superheroes. Of course, with you being born in Minnesota, you do have a wonderful culture inside of you. Of course, you're Caribbean as well, Jamaican. So I'm curious, because I'm friends with people who are of Caribbean descent and have told me about their growing up and have talked about their story there. What pieces of Caribbean culture do you carry with you, and how has it helped you approach all of your characters throughout your career?
Well, I carry the entire book of Caribbean culture with me. I was raised in Minnesota in a house that I considered Jamaica. My parents were insistent that I be aware of and clear about where I originate from, my origin story. And my origin story is I'm the son of proud Jamaican immigrants who came to this country based on what they had been told about freedom and democracy and opportunity. And they managed to carve out a large chunk of that, not only for themselves, but for us, myself and my three sisters. It was not at all easy. And whenever anybody speaks about heroism or superheroism, my reference is my mother and father.
That's such a beautiful and relatable story, especially not only for Caribbean people, but I believe just for minorities in general. You know, our parents often have to sacrifice so much for us, just because of how the system is set up. It is an unfortunate reality, but a
Well,
superpower.
I think that's exactly right. It is an unfortunate reality, but it is the obstacle that helps you generate incredible strength if you view it as simply a challenge rather than a roadblock. I mm, I think everything that has happened because I wasn't sure it was possible, but if it was possible, what would it look like? And I think that I have to refer back to to my parents, and my experiences as as an outsider, as an outlier, as someone. I spend a lot of time listening and watching, and I think that is at the heart of what I believe about acting. That the most important thing you can do as an actor is listen, and it's not far from one of the most important things you can do as a person.
100%, 100%. A lot of actors say to getting the best experience as a performer is just to live life and experience where this mystical journey we call life takes you, you know? And I 100% agree with that. As an actor myself, I've noticed the more that I've engaged with life and even doing these interviews, it's really informed a lot of my performances, you know? So I
Mhm.
100% agree with you. It just makes you a fuller, rounded out person.
Yes, and
Um,
as you know, then as a performer, there are things that happen that you can't necessarily account for. I believe in preparation. I love research. Um, I like to know as much as I possibly can, so I have a lot to forget, but I bring it into the present with me. And the things that you tell yourself about a character, any character, that has to go all the way to the root, and you're you're the root. So it's the more soil you have, the more nutrient you have. I think the richer the experience can be for you, and if it's rich for me, then hopefully there's some piece in it that an audience um, can find that will be of
Make it
importance to
relatable.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Man, you know, I mentioned this in the beginning, but you know, journalist turned acting, you know, award-winning acting extraordinaire. You have such a doing my research with your interviews, you have such a way with words, and that makes sense with you, of course, being a, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but being an English major in college?
That's correct.
Yes, yes.
English major, biology minor. Did not expect to be acting. Uh, I I I say it was a happy accident because I was assigned to do a freelance story about a company of actors who had made the decision to leave Minneapolis. There was five individuals in this company, Dudley Riggs Brave New Workshop, and they went west. They went out to LA. And so the company was replacing these five actors. Improvisational comedy. They had auditions for it. I ended up on the wrong side of the room or the right side, depending on how you want to think of it, and got an audition card and thought it would be a perfect perspective from which to write the story. You know, some aspiring individual who comes to these auditions and does not get into the company, but is able to write a story about the process. The only thing that changed was I did get asked to join the company, and in what for me was a leap of, I don't know if it was a leap of faith or it was just a, uh, something I had never thought to do before that I really enjoyed. So I said, yeah, I'll try it. And I'm still trying.
Mm. Man, we're so happy for that. You've done such an amazing job with so much that you've done, and you've done so many incredible things. But I want to briefly discuss about your time as a journalist because in following your social media, you're such a big fan of books and the spoken word and English as a whole. So I'm curious, where does your love of the spoken word come from, and just literature and just expressiveness in general?
Um, I was a library nerd. Books were some of my earliest best friends. And one of the things that I appreciated about the library was there were all of these different subjects and all of these different writers. And I read a lot of nonfiction, but I was primarily a fiction person.
Wow.
Science fiction for a while, nothing like nothing like what we have today. But Heinlein and all of these science fiction writers who were talking about the possibility of a world we didn't know about yet. And all of these people who were writing stories about a history that I was unaware of, histories from different countries and histories of different peoples. And the fact that they all carried within them certain themes that were consistent. They were about individuals who either lost their way and found it, or individuals who thought they had it all and lost it, people who felt they were alone, that no one else shared their story, and then they came to find there were communities of people who shared their stories because they had been taken from those communities long before they knew it. All of these kinds of themes and stories across cultures that were similar. And it gave me not only a sense of having companions out there, no matter what it looked like in the life I was living. I was unto myself in many ways. I had my family. I had my three sisters and my mother and my father. And then I was trying to make my way in a world that did not always seem to welcome my presence, and in fact, sometimes seemed to question it. I came up at a time and in a place where there were not that many black people. There was a Native American population in Minnesota. They were actually treated, in my view, worse than black people, and we weren't, it was no picnic. Um, so there was a degree to which the library was a haven, and it was the first job my father and mother would let me have. The Franklin Branch Library was 3 blocks from our home, and I could walk there. And they they trusted me to do that. It was when I was 13, and I got a job first as a shelver and then as a clerk. And I was in the library system, working at different libraries in Minneapolis for about I don't know, through high school. I love libraries, and I think books help us speak to other consciences, speak to other experiences without ever having to go there. It creates excitement about things unknown. And I think that also has something to do with faith, which is, that belief in something that you haven't seen or haven't necessarily experienced, but that could be something you could be a part of. So maybe it was my joy of reading, the fact that you're always finding out something you didn't know.
Yes.
There are some people who feel that they become expert by reading and quote unquote knowing everything, but I think the more you read, the more you realize there's so much more to know.
Absolutely.
And for me, like acting, it doesn't end. So as much as I appreciate, the kindness of people who um, congratulate me on the career I've had or the work I've done, is that's it's ongoing for me, and I hope to continue to learn every day I'm doing this.
Wow. Man, I when I hear you say those words, it's just like, man, I really wish I never had like lost. my passion for reading. You know, we're in such an interesting era with technology and social media and stuff like that. And that it is just so hard for me to like get into a book these days, and I hate it. You know, I used to read so much stuff like I'm primarily a comic reader, but I
Hmm.
used to read comics like a lot, and nowadays it's just so, my attention span is just so shot, and I hate it, man. It's so bad because you're right. Like, it's so unfortunate that we're currently in an administration that seems to want to target education and knowledge, and it's so unfortunate because the most ignorant people just don't know. You know what I'm saying? They just
Yes.
don't know about these cultures. They don't know about what this person is going through, or you know, it's just like a lack of education, and education is so important. You know, it breaks my heart to know that teachers are so underpaid because they are some of the most important people in our society. You know, that
Absolutely vital.
passing of that knowledge, the passing of the torch in that sense is you can't put a price tag on that, you know?
No,
And
no.
it just, it hurts me.
Well, you know, I think in part, I mean, certainly as you grow and you find new interests, maybe reading doesn't excite you in the same way it does, but I don't think it's an accident that in most societies where power becomes conflated with force, and the ability to make people do things is much easier if they are not as educated. I think it's no accident that in most of those societies, one of the first things that comes under attack is education and the arts, because an informed electorate is less easy to lead by the nose. And that, I think, across the board, people who want to be able to force the issue don't want obstacles, and education and people who read, I believe, are crossing boundaries without even realizing it. They're walking in other worlds freely and joyfully, and they come to feel that, well, this is the way the real world could be. That's anathema to people who want to control populations and want to control resources. But I think if you have ever had a love of reading, you can be seduced again by a book. You can just allow yourself time with it. You don't have to rush it. You know, read a few pages a day until it gets you again, and you find yourself sleepless at 3 a.m. just trying to finish it.
What are some books you're reading these days?
I'm reading a lot of James Baldwin these days. As it happens, I have been trying to work. Well, I haven't been trying to work. I have been working very hard at writing a one-man show on James Baldwin. And James Baldwin, for me, is one of those individuals who was very responsible for changing a lot of the way many people thought, but he was he was known for he was known for so many things. He was kind of not really identified in my mind for the human being that he was, and that's what I want to address. So he's written a number of books. Giovanni's Room, Go Tell It on the Mountain, If Beale Street Could Talk. His work of nonfiction is in one of the best collections is called The Price of the Ticket. And if you read his work, I think you begin to get a greater picture of both the both the promise of this republic and the ways in which it, not only the ways in which it has failed itself, but the ways in which it can be brought back. And it all comes down to this sense of connection and love. It's a very simple thing. You know, we have all of these songs we sing about love. We have, I don't think you can go on Netflix or any of the streaming services and not see, film after film, project after project dealing with love, trying to get love, love denied, love unexpected, love for large groups, love for individuals. That's the sinew and bone of our society is love. And so to the degree to which you get opened up to all of those possibilities and reconnected with that overall sense of love, especially love for yourself, that's the degree to which I think the arts in general, the arts writ large, but reading in particular for me, is essential.
I'm gonna have to get some of those. I'm gonna have to get into some James Baldwin. I didn't know if Bill Street Could Talk was based off of a James Baldwin.
One of
I
his
did not
novels.
know that.
Yes,
That's
sir.
crazy. That's one
Yes,
of my
sir.
friends' favorite movies of all time. I didn't. That's crazy. I have to get that.
Well,
Wow.
one of the I think features of James Baldwin is he was not as appreciated when he was alive as he
Yeah.
was after he passed, and he actually predicted that. He said, in general, society doesn't quite know what to do with artists, with outliers, until they're gone, and then there's a tremendous appreciation often for what they represented and and very often they have a resurgence, not like James Baldwin. I think he is probably still one of the most read, quoted authors of our time. And because he went far past simply writing books into being a spokesperson for justice and freedom and equality, he became a true statesman. He had to leave this country to discover how American he was. And in discovering it, he was, safely in Paris at a remove from a lot of the racism which shrouded this country, especially in the time that he left in 1948 and he returned in 1954. He left, he went to Paris because he had to try and find himself as an artist because those gateways were not open to him here. And having done that, he could not remain in Paris because, having identified the fact that he was indeed an American, he couldn't sit on those shores and watch what was happening to black people in this country, and not just to black people, because the cruel fact is that those who oppress are more oppressed than the people they are trying to oppress. The warden and the jail keep, they're both living in the prison with all of the people they feel they've incarcerated. They're in there too. There's a way in which he was addressing the grand plight of the nation, not for all of its people, and for those people who felt that they were um, safe and beyond the danger. He was saying, you are creating the very danger that you're trying to avoid if you're not providing freedom for every single individual. One unfree individual means that the society is not completely free. And that was what he dedicated himself to.
So many of our struggles are interconnected, and that's what we need to realize as we head into these next 4 years of whatever this madness ends up looking like, is that we need to stick together and come
That is
together as a
exactly
collective.
right. I think connection is our superpower. I think
Absolutely.
love is the lubricant. And I think our engine can continue to run and has done so. I'm old enough to know that you can get past times like these and grow and strengthen. It's not alchemy, it's not magic, it's faith.
100%. You have such a wonderful way of looking at your career and how far you've come. So I'm curious, what does acting mean to you now that it didn't mean to you when you first started?
Excellent question, Joshua. Um, well, I suppose just practically, it means that I was not a fool to make the choice that I made. um, that even though I wasn't exactly sure what I was getting into, I did recognize that once I began doing it, it was reaching places in me and opening me up to places in other people. And so I guess I didn't realize how much more open I could become. I certainly didn't realize how many different stories there were, because when you get to walk around in the stories of other people's lives, you realize how closely related you are. That um, one either one misstep or one fortuitous step like I took can make a tremendous difference. I like work. As I say, I like research, and I've always enjoyed working. I like learning. I like toiling. I
Same.
didn't realize how much work was involved. If you if you want to do as much as you can to learn as much as you can about a character, you're always going to come up short because there's always more to know. I did not, I thought that creating a character was figuring out how someone could take the text that they had been given, that the words the character would speak, and fix that. Create something not unlike a statue that you could go back to again and again and again and again. I started on stage, so the idea of repetition um, was initially something I thought was the key. I think it's the fact that acting is always in the present tense, no matter who you're playing, no matter what time you're in. For you, the actor, it's always in the present tense, and your characters have to live in in the present tense with you. I was not as aware of that, but that's part of the joy of the work for me now, is that in attaching myself to that hope and to that idea, I never feel tired. I never feel certainly never bored. Um, there's always something more to do, and because all of this would be of no use in a certain way if you were not doing it for an audience. That unseen audience, whether it be one or three or 500 or 5 million, it it doesn't really make a difference. This is something that I feel I can be a vessel and receive a gift and then give a gift back through the work.
I think the reason we connect so much with these performances is because of that very fact. You guys are a vessel for the emotions and the text. I mean, that's why you've been hired so many times, right? Is you're a perfect vessel for a lot of these words and a lot of these sentiments and a lot of these personality traits. And it's really struck a chord with a lot of audiences. And of course, with you learning so much over the course of your acting career and gaining so many disciplines, from being on stage and on camera, want to talk a little bit about you going into the world of voice acting. Now, here on this page, I'm a huge fan of the craft of voice acting and voiceover work. So I always love asking this question to phenomenal people such as yourself who start on stage, and then of course you have such a beautiful career on camera, but you have this neat little pocket with the voice acting world. So I'm curious, how did you get into the world of voice acting?
I have one individual to credit. Her name is Andrea Romano,
Ah, the
and
goat, the
yeah,
goat.
yeah, and that's
Yes.
that is the reason why I do voice. She hired me for my first voice job. I did a few of them with her, and then she came to me one day and said that there was something she wanted me to try out for, which was Martian Manhunter. And before she brought Martian Manhunter to me, she kept saying, "I think you could do well in this business. You have a good voice, and
She was right.
you
She was
you
right.
you know you know." But she was a tremendous director, and once again, every session I did with her prior to Martian Manhunter, prior to Justice League, subsequent to it, I held certain ideas that I felt I got from her. She would listen. There it is again. She would listen so um, completely and with such specificity, and she could hear you do something, and she would say, "That is good. That is good. What if you try it with a little of this? What if you try it with a little of that?" And so it's it became like making soup. And so direction became not an intrusion, but um, it was, there's more. And it was an encouragement. And so I think uh, that's, that has always been a part of what I wanted to do. So voice work for me was perhaps being able to risk a little more in a certain way, take a certain chance. And with Jean Jones, that's what took place because she said he was Martian. That was all she really said. And she said, and so I just would like to hear what you think is a Martian. And because I had already been encouraged to kind of like, you know, scamper about on the margins of what I thought might be acceptable, I thought, why not take the risk? And I thought of Jean Jones as sort of like the ultimate immigrant who was the only one who was able to make the journey from Mars to Earth, that he had lived for a long time without his culture. Without, and so all there were certain resonances that made made a certain kind of sense, you know, taken from whether it was voluntary or not, deprived of your homeland and forced to find a not just a place to land, but a place where you could contribute to a society or the idea of a society that you believe in. That's what Jean Jones found. And I think that's what the task was for certainly my parents and for almost every immigrant family who came to this country and around the world. So Jean Jones for me became the ultimate immigrant.
That's such a beautiful way to look at such an interesting character. Martian Manhunter always stuck out to me the most when watching the cartoon as a kid. And that's me and my mom's favorite cartoon. So we're always rewatching it and just gaining new things from it. And that character always struck a chord to me because of that very fact of how you viewed him and how you played him. I gotta ask personally because I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but you're the first actor to ever play Martian Manhunter, at least for the public. You're the first person to ever bring this character to life in general. So I gotta ask, how does it feel to see all the other Martian Manhunters that have come after you, both in live action and in the animated format?
It feels great. It feels great because I think these characters have room in them for a lot of people. It gives them staying power and traveling power. So the fact that one of the joys of my career was being able to be a part of the live action Supergirl, where Jean Jones was portrayed by David Harewood, who I thought was a magnificent Jean Jones, magnificent Martian Manhunter, and the tremendous gift of being able to play that character's father, Marin Jones, MY apostrophe RNN, was John's father, who had survived, unbeknownst to Jean, which is what I love about the world of comic books, is you can always live again. He didn't know that he had survived, and he went back to Mars and got him and brought brought him in. So again, it was to me just a continuation of that amazing immigrant story. David is an extraordinary actor and an amazing individual. And I think what he did in bringing Jean Jones to life was was just sweetness. So it was a real joy. And the other voice actors who get the opportunity, I'm just happy for them because Jean is a wonderful, wonderful character. I feel fortunate that I was able to slide in there first and make a mark. But you know, it's kind of like when you make a mark on a tree. The first mark made is actually going to look taller because the tree is growing, but there are other marks that are going to be made that are right up there, if not
I
beyond yours. And you always want people to, I don't know, do better, you know?
I think for me, you're saying, people could be. I don't think anyone could do Martian Manhunter like you do, man. And I'm not just saying that because you're here. It's just that, like, there's something so amazing about what Andrea Romano created with you guys. Like, genuinely, like, she created such a landmark series with phenomenal performers. I mean, look at how many of the actors have gone on to portray these characters in different formats.
Mhm.
George Newbern, Susan
Right,
Eisenberg has played Wonder Woman for years. I
right.
mean,
Phil Lamar,
who does
Maria.
John Stewart as Phil? Like, no one does it like Phil, man.
No,
Come on.
no,
Like,
no.
there's been others, but like you guys as a unit and as a cast really took these characters to new heights. So it's just hard for me to imagine anyone else of those characters. Same as, God rest his soul, Kevin Conroy is
Mm,
Batman. I
mm,
cannot
mm,
imagine
mm.
anyone else playing Batman.
Well, one of the things you
Seriously.
said that I think is so important, Joshua, is we were a cast, and Andrea treated us like a company. You know, as I've moved along and doing different voice jobs, I realized that we were really privileged because for most of those, we got to be in the same room with one another, in the same studio while we were recording. So we felt like a company. And quite often, there was such a joy in being there while George and Kevin and Maria and Phil were doing their thing, and all of the wonderful guest people who came in to do voices. Again, it's like an academy. You got to work and learn at the same time, and there was a joy created, and perhaps that smaller audience was what we had in mind, and maybe that's why it could reach larger audiences in the way it did, because we were of one accord. And again, that was Andrea Romano, who I just think what she did and what she has done, not just in this, but what she did with her career, was just brilliance. And again, keyed in completely on listening, which obviously for voice work that's kind of important. Um, but
Yes.
it became much more important to me to feel that to feel that harmony that we got in those episodes. There was something about us that was um, like a chorale choir, and I yeah. So I liked singing.
Beautiful. Like you're describing it earlier. It's a perfect soup of all of you guys just coming together, and the elements from the writing and the animation and the talent, just making something so long lasting that continues to be celebrated now. I mean, look at all the conventions. I mean, those guys are going to cons all the time and they're selling out just because of this show. you know,
Absolutely,
it's it's
absolutely.
it's wonderful. What do you remember from the audition of Martian Manhunter? And how would you describe the voice you make for Martian Manhunter? I'm such a nerd for this stuff. So how'd you craft that voice?
I thought of someone who was really lonely and who had not ever thought that he would feel a part of something, who stumbled across this possibility, this planet with these strange beings called humans. None of them like Martians. None of them could discorporate. None of them could read other people's minds. None of them were as strong. None of them could fly, except for this group. And so these were, you know, this was these were his people. Whether they were like him in terms of where they came from, they were like him in practicum. They were dedicated to making their society a better place, and he could align himself with that. But he was by himself. There was no one who knew, no one who carried his experiences, no one who had seen the kind of tragedy, no one who had found himself homeless in the way John Jones was, and tired. I mean, the man was what, 900 years old.
He's up there, yeah.
He found new life. He found joy at 900 on this planet, and grew to a place where he became conversant with some of the things we deal with, like love and jealousy and pettiness. It's one of the things that I think was, well, I guess by now many people understand it, but Justice League talked about some very, very amazing themes. And it wasn't didactic at all. You were led into it by your attachment to these individuals who once again were fighting to try and keep this thing that they believed was so important, and they believed it was important for everyone. So anyone who would disrupt that definitely was on the wrong side of the Justice League. And when you are fighting for justice, you have to keep in mind those things that make you the proper vessel, receptacle, tool to carry forward those ideals. You can't cross the line and still be involved with justice. And you can't want justice for a small group of individuals and not want it for everyone. John had all of these skills, as did all of the Justice Leaguers, but I thought that what was most important for me about him was that his true power was contained. He could probably have ripped apart all sorts of things, blown stuff up, done a lot of killing, but his true power was in what he was able to contain. And sometimes that means holding on to that urge you have to just, get back, and really concentrating perhaps even more on, well, what is the condition of this poor fool who insists on working in opposition to a natural, beautiful force? And maybe there's a way of opening them by, especially by remaining true to and standing firm inside my own principles and our principles as a group. So that was what empowered him in for me, and the voice really came out of someone who I thought hadn't had a conversation with another being for 500 or 600 years. That once you began to speak, there was a part of that voice that you had to keep inside yourself. So as he began to talk, it's funny because I don't do Jean unless unless I'm in Jean mode. Because that's not me. I have my voice, and I get to be full voiced, and I don't care. But Jean, but but Jean had to be cautious. He had to be careful. And as the years went by, as he came out more and more. There's an episode that I really loved, which was the Christmas episode, where Superman brings Jean Jones home for Christmas. And at the end of that episode, Jean sings a traditional Martian song of celebration, not unlike a Christmas carol or a hymn. He's not singing it to anyone, he's singing it to himself, out to his universe. And that was the most joyful expression Jean had. That was the one moment where he could let himself go in song. I thought that was I thought that was just ideal. And even though Andrea sprung that on me, we're going to need a Martian song. Don't think about it now. We'll do it at the end of the session. Um, I'm forever grateful. I'm forever grateful. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, man. The one thing I always loved about watching your interviews is just how deeply resonant a lot of these stories and a lot of these moments are with you. And I love that. And I love that sense of love and appreciation that you have for these multiple worlds that you've been able to inhabit. I want to switch over to another world in the DC universe that I was curious about. You did a voice for the Young Justice TV series as a Martian. How did you end up on Young Justice? And were you ever contacted to play Martian Manhunter for that series, or was it just for that particular Martian?
I'm going to be honest. What I remember, it was just for that particular Martian, and it was just one of those queries. Would you be interested in coming in? And I was, and I generally am, unless something sucks. Um, sorry,
No.
I generally am. So I went in. That's how that happened.
Got you. We've been talking a lot about the importance of identity and representation, and I want to talk about real quickly your role on Static Shock as and please correct me if I'm saying his name wrong, but Ananasi, right?
Oh man, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which is such a cool role, and I love you and Phil's back and forth on that show. Using Static Shock as an example, how important is representation in the industry, more specifically black representation, because we see how important that character was to Static Shock in that series?
I think representation is vital, and it's not simply for the individual who gets to represent. It's for the society. We're dealing with something that is um, a construct. You know, this was there's nothing natural about the way this came about. People don't naturally meet another group of people and say, you are less human than I am, so we get to take you over. We're going to send you across uh, this ocean, to another place where you won't have any freedoms unless we give them to you, and you are going to work for us, and it's going to give you opportunities that you wouldn't have if you were stuck here in your homeland like everyone else gets to be in the world. Now, we should also mention that you're going to do this work on ground that we have stolen from the indigenous people who lived, grew, and developed there. And the reason we're doing that is because they too are not as human as we are. So this grand enterprise is all founded on ideals of democracy and freedom, and each of us has to do our part. All of us full humans, and you not so full humans. Well, that's BS. That is complete mythology. The fact is that the legend of our nation is still being written. it got off to a bad start.
Yes.
And we're all responsible for making it better. Diversity is nothing new. Diversity is what this world is about. And it was foolish, perhaps a function of some pathology. It was certainly cruel to have perpetrated what was perpetrated on the peoples who have endured and survived. But they are here, never went anywhere, and were always part of the diversity of this nation. You know, I know that DEI has been attacked and used
Yeah.
as a way to say that this program, this idea, is somehow counter to what I was taught was essential in any society. That all of the individuals, all of the citizens, we call this a republic, all of the citizens of the republic have equal weight as individuals. And that weight can be put to whichever side, whichever group you want. But that is a part of the diversity of the nation. It was always here. So the idea of diversity, the idea of inclusion, I'm not exactly sure what you attack about the fact that yes, we're all here. It is a fact. It's not an attempt. It's not a movement. It is a fact. And equality is written into all of the founding documents of this nation. Now, granted, because of the mythology, they did not realize or they did not accept that the people that they did not want to recognize were indeed people. But that was their problem. That was their pathology. The fact is, diversity, inclusion, and equality are among the many words, positive principles that have made this country what it is. And for those people who
Preach.
would like to deny that or want to walk that back, I would suggest you go to a library and try and find not only the books that exist there, but seek out some of these banned books so that at least you can be informed. If you're saying that these things are frightening, that they make you feel bad, just imagine the lived experience of people who finally got the opportunity to tell their stories. And you don't want those stories to be known because they put you in a bad light. I have reached the end of my comment on that point.
Y'all, is it Sunday? Cause he preaching. Hold on, y'all. Cause this is no. I'm very happy I'm getting to have this conversation with you, especially with someone who is so knowledgeable and really understands this, you know. I'll get off I'll say this final point on this and I'll move on to the next topic. But it's been extremely frustrating to see the demonization of our culture and of who we are based off of pure ignorance. You know, there is so much to love and so much to appreciate about so many marginalized and oppressed communities, so much that we've given to the culture of this country and to countries around the world, you know, and to ban books and to repress knowledge and education of what we've truly contributed. They could do it all they want. But the truth of the matter is that we are here to stay. We are going to continue to give to the culture. We are going to continue to create and innovate and tell stories that uplift and inspire and show the true history of what we have been through as a people and as a nation. So I don't care what administration is in place. I don't care what you call me. I don't care what you call my fellow black man, my fellow black sister. I don't care what you call anyone. The truth of the matter is we are here to stay day, and you can't erase us no matter how hard you try. I don't care. I don't care what you try to do. I don't care about what executive order you pass. Cut all that noise. Cut all that noise. Because when you really get into what we've done for the culture, we are embedded societally. We are a functioning part of so many industries around the world. So you call me a DEI hire all you want. Yes, I am. Thank you. I'm going to
Yeah.
continue to be great. I'm going to continue to show you why we are in the positions that we are in.
Well, and I think we also have this incredible opportunity, as we have had before as people of color in this country, to teach. And it's, I think that ignorance is a part of it, but also fear is a large part of what guides certain people in certain groups. But within those groups, I think they are still a minority. There was a thing that the principle that was spoken about, this silent majority. I think it was during the either the Nixon or the Reagan era, where I think it was Nixon, where he talked about the fact that there were a lot of people who felt a certain way, but you didn't hear from them. You just heard from the protesters. Well, I think within the majority population, which is still clinging to its majority by a thread, because demographics are indeed changing. But I think within that population, there are many more people who feel just like you and I do, but they're not voicing it in some ways because our danger makes them feel safer. Not it's not like they wish for bad things to happen. It's just that if they know for a fact that there are other people, homeless people, dispossessed individuals who have it really rough, in a way, it makes them feel better about the safety that they imagine that they have. But because it is all one world, and as we're seeing right now, don't safety can be overrated. You're safe until you realize, uh-oh, somebody just got through the gate. So I say we're closer, and maybe that's why the activity has increased in the way it has, because I think we're closer as a nation to certain realizations that certainly than we were when I was a young man coming up. I remember seeing the photo of Emmett Till when I was too young to really absorb that. I was probably 7 or 8 years old. And to look at a picture of a young man, not much older than myself, who had been brutalized at that level, and to know that there were places in the world where if I went and did the wrong thing or the right thing, I might end up the same way. That kind of image never leaves you.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the point, that individuals who perpetrate these kinds of things want to leave that mark in you and want you to stop your development at that point for fear. But it's their fear that is much more critically important than your fear. Because if you're able to take stock of the reality of life, and if you're able to align yourselves with people who feel the same way, that is a much greater power than any hatred that exists. And I think proof of that is the fact that we are still here.
Mm. Talk to him, man. Seriously, like 100% agree. It's They've tried to kill so many marginalized people for years. They try to hunt us down and try to get rid of us. It's hard to get rid of us, man. It's hard to get rid of our purity, our love, our joy, our intelligence. It's hard to get rid of. Yes, you'll never do that, and
No, and you
it's
can't, I don't think, I think it's like maiming the body politic. You're trying to cut off an arm. And then you're going to realize, oh, good grief, I needed that hand at the end of that arm I cut off.
yeah.
Um, it doesn't make sense to me, but it does provide a tremendous set of ongoing challenges to be overcome. And there's evidence of that all over this nation and has been for centuries. People who overcome, people who withstand, people who maintain their principles, who maintain their belief in love, who maintain their belief in the fact that it can always be better, that even the worst individual with the worst instincts can be brought to a place where they become better. They can receive information. All we're trying to do, I think, all of us who are like-minded, and this is beyond color for me, all of us who are like-minded in our sense that our connection is our strength, our power, that the nation benefited from it and will benefit from it again as soon as we clear the static.
Man, I love that phrase, clear the static. I want to switch over to a character that's very important to that, and of course, that you've recently played, Isaiah Bradley, Captain America, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Just want to, before I ask my questions about this wonderful character that you've got to embody, just want to give you a huge congratulations for the recognition and the accolades that you're getting for portraying the character, not only in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but it was so amazing to see your wonderful smiling face on the red carpet premiere for Brave New World, and I know that must have been an incredible night for you, to just see that. And I gotta say, man, you know how to rock a suit. I gotta say, like, you know how to rock a suit. So whenever I see you on the carpet, man, I'm just like, hey, he got it on. So I was just happy to see you there. In comparison to other characters, we're having a very deep conversation about the history of the Black identity and culture. And of course, Isaiah Bradley has a very deep and resonant history with this country. And, the comic, I believe it's called Truth.
Truth.
Yes. That's a very deep story. We talked about how important Martian Manhunter is to you, but in comparison to other characters you've played, how important is Isaiah Bradley to you?
I would say it's, in some ways, it's like asking me which is my favorite child, but at the risk of making the other kids a little jealous, I would say Isaiah is my favorite, and it in many ways, because Isaiah represents me and I represent Isaiah. I, in my career, have always, initially, I wanted to play individuals who I didn't get to see on screens. And I wanted to play characters who I knew men like that, Black men like that, but I didn't get to see them. And I knew that there were fathers who stayed with their families. My own father was so much a part of the family. Sometimes I sort of felt oppressed. It's kind of like, oh boy, Dad is a load. If I get through this, I can do anything. He represents for me a kind of manhood and personhood that I wanted to do justice to. Part of Isaiah's story is that at 22, he left his pregnant wife, 4 months pregnant, and went off to serve his country, not only because he um, wanted to fight against the evils he thought were being perpetrated, but also because he felt, and so many other of the black soldiers who enlisted with him felt certain that this country could not deny them and our people anything after they realized how much we were willing to fight for this country, how much we believed in this country, how much we loved this country. So at that age, a young man in his juice, in his fullness, strong, proud, loving, left his wife, Faith, and the daughter yet unborn to go put himself on the line to bring about something better for the next generation, for those people who would be benefited on both sides, both the black people who would get the opportunity to show themselves and be regarded and appreciated as equal citizens, having sacrificed equally, and for those individuals who didn't know, who were afraid, who were ignorant about that very fact that we are all in this together. So there are aspects of that that I think have been a part of my career and my life, things that I felt were important that I wanted to represent. Isaiah is the culmination in many ways of that. I think of Isaiah as having contained power. I know he had the serum, he's incredibly strong, he's really old. We share that. Um, but Isaiah has the power to continue to love. He had the power to protect that piece of his heart that contained faith. And he lives each day of his life with his responsibility to that woman in his heart and in his mind. And whoever, be it woman, man, dog, cat, whoever you feel you have that kind of attachment, that love bond with, you're going to live maybe beyond your own expectation of yourself to represent them in a way that does them justice. Isaiah is there. When he is betrayed by the state, by his country, and he, among other things, has to spend 17 years in solitary captivity, 30 years being experimented on. Why isn't he dead yet? That's basically what these experiments were trying to figure out. Why hadn't this serum that killed so many others, why hadn't it killed him? I think it's a metaphor for me. That the reason it hasn't killed him is, in part, the grace of the universe, the grace of God, the grace of the Creator, wherever you locate that individual. If it hasn't destroyed him, then he's here for a reason. That is how I see Isaiah. Isaiah has something in him that even he may not know all about it. He just knows that it's there. He identifies it as his faith in love, his faith in faith, his belief that things that he has not yet seen might be possible. But he has to be aware of the fact that he lives as a target. So he has a choice to make, and Sam Wilson helps him make that choice. Live imprisoned, even though you're no longer in prison. Live imprisoned in your own mind, in your own fears, in your own doubts, or live free, no matter what. Those are some of the things that I feel I get an opportunity to walk with Isaiah. I think he is a people person. I just think he has a really high standard. And so,
For good reason.
yeah. And so I love Isaiah. I love Isaiah the way I love all people who are trying to live at the top of their intelligence, whether it be the easiest thing to do or not, and who maintain my sense that love is the most important thing. Love is the connector, and until you lose that, you still have your humanity.
Wow. I feel all of that when you play this character. And one of my friends was telling me that you're his favorite part of Falcon and the Winter Soldier just because of how emotional this role is and how deep it goes. And I tend to agree. You did such a phenomenal job. I mean, one of my favorite, not one of my one of my favorite moments in all of Marvel history will be at the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where Sam takes him. I'm just getting emotional thinking about it. Oh my god, hold on. I just got. Oh my gosh, when Sam takes him to see his statue, and he was like, "Now no one will ever forget." And I remember seeing that moment, and I just started weeping. Like I was like, "This is incredible." Like this to give Isaiah that moment after everything he's been through, all that torment, all of that pain, for him to live through it, to be with his nephew, to get to see Sam become Captain America. I mean, my God, that just feels like a culmination of so much.
Well,
Both
I would be remiss if I didn't make a really, really important point from the two gentlemen who wrote Truth to the individual, and there were many of them, but the one that I personally credit, Malcolm Spellman, um, with writing those scenes, not only in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but in the way they brought Isaiah's language to to bear. When I auditioned for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I was where you've just found yourself in an audition. I didn't know who it was. They didn't have Isaiah Bradley on the sheet.
of course.
They had a different name because that's how Marvel likes to do it. Um, and so I just saw this text. I just saw this text with this man talking about what happened to him, and it's the I would say it was probably 3/4 of a page. This particular speech, and it took me. It took me. It was simple. It was honest. It was. I had a clear picture of Isaiah from that that passage of text. So I have to credit. I mean, those moments. Yes, I feel privileged that I got an opportunity to play them, but they wouldn't be there, but for the mind, heart, and soul of writers. And I think the best writers are the best readers. Personal bias. Always go back to reading. Get your
Yes.
book, Joshua.
Yes, I
Um,
will. After
but
this, I got you.
I have to do that, and because that writing also is a process, because you don't just write the first thing and say this is it. Those ideas, that moments like those, are lived before you get to live them. So it was my privilege to be trusted with text that was that important and given an opportunity to carry on what I got from that text. So, shout out to all writers everywhere, but Marvel writers, Malcolm.
Were I know you've talked about in previous interviews you weren't really in the world of comic books like that. So when you saw how deep stories like Martian Manhunters and Isaiah Bradley stories got, how did your perspective on like comic books and pop culture media like flip?
That, I think that's the best way to describe it. It flipped. it flipped, flipped. It slapped. It's one of those things. Well, of course it does. I had been raised, and understandably, uh, by parents who did not feel that comic books were literature, and that there was something. I think because of the images, because of the visual images, and the very limited amount of text, it did not qualify to my parents as being worthy. And they weren't wild about science fiction reading either. But it was a book, so I was allowed to do that. But it flipped me completely, because I think what I came to understand was that comic books could reach people where they were. Not everyone, unfortunately, had the benefit of being educated at the level that I did. Not everyone had the benefit of having the leisure to sit down and read a book. And comic books, something about the fact that even if you eliminated the text and you just went by the boards, you would receive a story, and it could be very, very powerful. That action does speak, and I mean, I'm an actor, and that's that's act is the key. So that motion, that's created, can draw you further into a story with fewer words. That was, I think, the doing moment for me.
Sound effect and all.
Yeah.
That comic books are so well known for. Brave New World is sweeping audiences, is doing very well at the box office. I got to see that opening night with a few friends. I had a phenomenal time. From a recording standpoint, what were some differences in recording for Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Brave New World? Obviously, of course, in Brave New World, you have a whole fight scene going on right there. So, what were some differences taking it from the smaller screen to the big screen?
I suppose I would say the size of the world on every level. The difference between seeing it on a 60-inch format, if you have a big TV like that, or on your laptop, to seeing it on a screen many times taller than you are, many times wider. So it just made that world larger and more encompassing because of how we view movies. I think when if you're watching a television program, you have access to all your treats. If you need to, you can pause and go take care of whatever you need to do and come back, either in a few minutes or maybe the next night. You're in there with the movie for the duration of the time. That 2 hours and 5 minutes, or however long it is, um, the two of you are together. And I think it makes the world that you see a world that you can walk in a little more easily. So the power of it on the big screen is, to me, magnitudes greater than on television. I think the other thing that cannot be denied is the action, and I think, and not just the people punching and jumping, but the idea that Sam Wilson as Captain America is utilizing the benefits of technology, of cooperation with other nations. Vibranium it's not found here in Illinois. It's a much bigger world that we're given access to. So it kind of proves the point and speaks to the point without having to be didactic or belabor it. It doesn't happen without all of us. It is a big world. And all of us, meaning even those individuals who present those challenges that we have to overcome for the greater good. It's just a much larger impact. And what I will say is also the Marvel universe, I'm sure the DC universe would say the same thing. These are very passionate viewers,
Yeah.
and they they have a. There are many of them, and I would say I've done a lot of work over the years. I don't think I've ever encountered this kind of fan base, fan reaction in anything else that I've done, and I'm just glad Isaiah Bradley is big and strong enough to withstand that, because Carl might have to like run away.
Oh man, I get that, man. I'm a Marvel viewer myself, so I get that passion. There was a lot of changes for the Brave New World. Some characters are cut out, some things were added. And of course, that's just the nature of the movie industry. Things get cut, things change all the time. For Isaiah, is your role original? Is your role the same size as it was originally intended, or did they change it, or how was your movie, how was Isaiah's role different from what you recorded into the final product of what came out?
I can only answer your question by saying uh, Isaiah was huge in 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 everything that I remember doing, because of the way this works, because it is collaborative, and because in some ways it's an assemblage. There are aspects that were edited, some edited in, some edited out, but Isaiah's size never changed. If I'm understanding what you're asking, in other words, Isaiah was a huge part of every iteration of the ones I know about and the ones I don't know about.
Got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, I asked that question really bad. Yeah, what I was just saying was like, how important was Isaiah to each version of Brave New World? What's so interesting is that Brave New World leaves Isaiah in a very interesting position in terms of how he opens up to the world. Is there anything you hope they do with Isaiah moving forward?
There's everything I hope they do with Isaiah moving forward. In my mind, in my backstory, Isaiah could be doing anything from work at his gym to outreach to homeless encampments to teaching Pilates, going you know fishing. I just don't know. I think everything is available to him in terms of possibility, and I think um, it it's a matter of choices.
Do you
It
think you could ever see him pick up the shield?
I don't know how heavy it is. Um, it's I rarely speculate about what I think might happen with a character. I love this cat, and I loved doing it in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, loved doing it here in Brave New World. And should it happen, I would be very happy to do it again. But if it does not happen, I sit very proudly with Isaiah as a new friend and someone who I got an opportunity to walk with. And I still like to take long walks.
Beautiful, man. We need you back. I love you so much as this character,
Oh
and I'm
man,
glad
thank you
that
so
you
much, man. Thank
love
you.
this character as much. Last two questions. Obviously, there's a ton of great stuff you're working on, but I want to talk about your collaboration with director and creative Michael Flanagan, and of course your upcoming part in the life of Chuck.
Come on.
I saw
Come
you
on.
I saw you repost the poster, and I'm very excited for what you have going on. Of course, this is not your first time working with him. Of course, you were on The Fall of the House of Usher, and have worked with him tons of other times. So I'm curious, what's it been like to collaborate with Mike Flanagan, and what's in store for us with the life of Chuck that you can talk about?
Well, working with Mike is has been just a dream. It feels like I've worked with him more than I actually have. I did Doctor Sleep and
Yes, you did.
and
Yeah.
the Fall of the House of Usher. Uh, both things I was so pleased to have been a part of. He is he's a dream to work with. Uh, Among other things, again, he listens. He listens deeply and completely. So when you are talking about things, he remembers what you said in a conversation at lunch, that he might be able to bring to bear in the scene that's coming up. The other thing is he trusts actors, and so if he has cast you, as he explained, he's clear on your ability to do the role. And now it's just a matter of, let's make some tasty choices. So it's collaboration on a level that I really, really love, because I feel like he counts on me to do the work that I have to do, because he's doing the work he has to do. And then when we come together and we put it in the same place, he'll get the best out of it. And he does that with each and every actor. He's thoughtful, he's mindful, he is courteous, and um, I would even say he's a friend. He he we're colleagues. Sometimes I think directors need to, be at the helm, and you're a seaman, and you're on a low deck at that. But with Mike, you're right there in the conning tower. You're on the bridge, and those decisions that are being made about which way to turn the rudder and which way it goes. He wants everybody who is on that ship to get to be a part of those decisions, and I think that's why there's so much richness in the work that he does, because we all have brought our best to it, and he gets to stir it up. And because, in my experience with him, he's written both of the projects, and the same will be true for this one. It's just exquisite. He has a love of literature. Full stop. He got me there. So and now with Life of Chuck, once again, he has taken one of the works of Stephen King with an enthusiastic Stephen King um, behind him. And I can't speak to the story. I will say this: if you have an opportunity, and here we go, read The Life of Chuck. It's a novella. It's a short work, but it is as potent, and I believe as good a preparation for watching this film as any you could have. And I don't think it will. I'm speaking from a place of ignorance, because I don't know what he's done with the film, but because of how I feel about him, I know it's excellent. I know that the people in Toronto who were in that audience at the film festival voted it the best film in the festival. And I trust audiences. So I'm really, really looking forward. I know what I was a part of, but I also know that I was only a small part of everything else that was going on. This is I think it is a beautiful, beautiful piece of work that I am anticipating we are all going to get to share in. I've had a first look, but
Lucky.
I've only been able to look through one window, so there's a whole house that I haven't seen.
Well, I'm excited. I can't wait. Of course, Mike is working on a DC project with Clayface, so let's hope he gives you a little call or something to do a nice little callback. Let's see. But my final question for you here today. Thank you so much. Before I ask it, for such a lovely and insightful conversation. I've had so much fun with you today. Thank you for being so generous
My
with your
pleasure,
time.
Joshua.
Thank you. My final question is, I mentioned this in the intro. There's so much history you've made. You played the first black superhero on television. You won an award, the Legend Award from the Caribbean Heritage Foundation. I got that right?
Yes, sir.
When you get all these accolades, people such as myself interview you and speak to how much you've done from your catalog. What does that signal to yourself about the journey that you chose to embark on so many years ago? And where do you hope to go next?
Well, I think I made myself open to something when I began to become interested in this work. And in whatever way it took place, things began to get poured into me. Opportunities to play different characters, because I began to be more observant about other people, stories that I otherwise might have missed, but because I was involved in trying to become as human in as many ways as possible, I had to be aware of as many stories as I could. I think I had a leg up because of reading, but I guess the journey that I have been on and the fact that I've been able to continue to travel as far as I have on this road has been gratifying, a little bit surprising, because at the time I began doing this, I did not see a 40-year career necessarily. I saw, well, I could do this for a while, but so it's been gratifying. It's been humbling because I've received, yes, awards and such are very nice, but it's things that people have said to me about being touched by characters, or the number of people who have come and said, I acted in school, and I wish I wish I had kept it up, or I act in community theater, and I feel the same way whenever I go into to do a performance, whether it's in front of 7 people or the full capacity 120 seat house. It's I'm a part of something, and I on my grand days, I like to think of myself as an artist, and the responsibility of an artist is to bear witness not only to the reality of what we see here, but to the possibility of what we don't see. Artists believe that we have the opportunity as people together to be better than we were yesterday. The notion of a new Jerusalem, which James Baldwin lived with, is still alive in the hearts of artists and many people around the world. And I think when you get to share performances and productions, you're just adding to that pool. So I'm happy that I've had the chance to stay wet.
And we're all happy for it and grateful for the talent they've given us. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been the ever lovely Carl Lumbly. Thank you all so much for joining me. Is there anything you want to plug or promote or give a shout out to before we head off for today?
I would just say Go read anything. And if you have a chance, The Life of Chuck, it's a wonderful read. I know it's going to be a tremendous view.
Awesome. Before we go, is it possible you can give me a shout out in the voice of Martian Manhunter?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I can.
Okay, I gotta
Okay.
hear this. Let's go.
Joshua, thank you for the work you do. Thank you for honoring those who might otherwise not be honored. Thank you for appreciating. And thank you for being a fellow actor in this beautiful endeavor that we all have.
Thank you so much. You're the best, man. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see y'all next time. And as always, peace, love, safety. Take care, stay blessed, no stress, and I always catch y'all.